Hey everybody, Coach Andrew here with Coach Chuck. So just coming at you guys with another interview. I thought this would be cool for you guys because not a lot of people know Chuck's story background and just his MMA experience, martial arts experience and background. Quite the experience that he has, and we're gonna kind of dive into that so you guys get to know Coach Chuck a little bit. So it should be cool for you guys, and I know it's always cool for me when I get to hear a little bit more about his background. So. All right, my man. So first things first, like where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Kind of bounced around a lot as a kid, but basically spent the majority of my youth in the Stevens Point area, which is central Wisconsin. A pretty small area, but it is a college town, so you do get a good amount of people coming in and out of the area.
For sure.
So,
Yeah, for sure. What martial art did you first start with, and like what age were you around?
I think I was probably about 5 or 6 years old when I started the wrestling program through the YMCA, the youth wrestling program.
Yeah.
That was basically the first experience I had with hand-to-hand combat type of stuff where you're a kid, so I mean they're not trying to hurt each other or anything like that, but you're learning techniques and things like that. So that was probably the first thing that I started out with.
Yeah.
As a youth.
Yeah. How long did you wrestle for? Would you say, like in the school system?
Off and on throughout all the way up into high school, but then basically at high school I just kind of quit all athletics at that point.
Yeah.
So.
Did you do other athletics too, like football or anything?
Yep. Played a little bit of football, basketball during that time, especially in junior high. Was big on that. And again, by high school, I just wasn't interested in doing that anymore. You always had to be somewhere. You always had to be going somewhere, and that was too fast-paced for me personally.
Oh, for sure. We see it so much, like today's age, like kids just get burnt out.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially like you, if you're starting wrestling that young.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So like this is a cool one for me because I don't know if I even know this. What was like the first, anything MMA related that you first saw? That like kind of, for me it was like I think watching The Ultimate Fighter when I was like 9.
Yep.
What was it for you that like was your first glance at MMA?
I think the first thing that I probably saw related to that would be like a lot of people, the first couple of UFCs, and then from there, it developed so fast. There were so many other people trying to replicate that. That sticks out in my mind. Renting those tapes because back then, pay-per-view system, things like that weren't like they are now.
Yeah.
Totally developed with the sports of boxing and then MMA. That, and then there used to be like ISK kickboxing back on the satellites back in the day.
Yeah.
So we used to watch a lot of that. So all of those things kind of were the first glimpses I got of the sport.
Yeah.
Arts.
How old were you, would you say, if you had to guess?
I'd probably say that'd be by the time I was 7 and 8, you're starting to watch that stuff and see. I'd have to do the math on the years exactly, but.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. Did Duke ever fight in those ISK stuff?
Yeah, actually he was on there.
That's cool.
I believe, if you look back at his record, you'd have to pinpoint the dates and stuff, but I do remember seeing him on stuff.
Probably Rick Rufus too, and all those guys, I would imagine.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
Killers when it came to kickboxing for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Being that they were so close to home here too, I mean that was always something you would look up to.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think the other one I had, but you kind of answered it, was what got you into watching / being a fan of the sport. I mean, it's probably the same thing. I mean,
I think I was actually doing it before I was a fan of it. You know what I mean?
Really?
Because of the times that we started in. I mean, if you look back at when I started, probably 2002 or early 2003 is when I actually really started training those specific martial arts that were involved in MMA. So I mean, if you look back, that's pretty pubescent, I guess I would say, of when that actually started to develop later on in 2006, 2007.
For
when
sure.
Ultimate Fighter really made everything take off.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean that's obviously way before my time, but it's always cool to think about like those like golden era days of like MMA in Wisconsin and just all over,
Yeah, I mean, similar to Pride, we had the Madtown Throwdown here, which is now developed into the what is it now? It's
Chosen Few
Fighting Championships. Originally was the Madtown Throwdown, and that was a full contact fighting organization where they did everything was legal. So basically, you could run up and soccer kick your opponent in the head to finish him or whatever. All the ground strikes were all legal back then.
So straight Pride rules.
Yep, and that was right here in our state of Wisconsin. So I mean, a lot of that you know,
crazy.
that event there, right there, brought a lot of people nationally into our state.
Oh, I bet.
Fight, you know, because there was guys, you know, maybe they lost on the UFC and they're trying to get back in or whatever, you know, things like that. So
That's nuts, man. That's nuts. Did you ever compete in like a Pride Rules fight like that?
no, I was actually aiming to at one time, and then Corey kind of found me and guided me along the way, you know, through his organization, kind of kept me as one of their, I guess you'd say like a stable person, like, you know, somebody
Sure.
you'd call and if you asked them to fight somebody, you know, they would do
Step
that.
up, yeah. And who, Corey?
Corey, honestly can't remember his last name right off the top of my head, but basically he was the matchmaker for Conquer the Cage here in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Is he still around? Or?
He is. He lives up in Wausau. I've talked to him several times since you know, being done, and he's up there. I think he plays poker and stuff now and sells cars for a living. But
that's cool.
But he was a huge part of MMA here at the time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And those are like the things even for me. It's like, you know, getting into MMA when the UFC was such a stable thing, and you know, MMA was sanctioned when I first started getting into training. So it's like, it's cool to think about all these guys that played such an integral role in the sport, just in the state, you know. So what got you into fighting in MMA, would you say? It's probably a broad question, but.
I think a lot of my life experiences brought me to it. I think when I was about 20 years old, I had gotten attacked and stabbed, and that was basically a huge driving force behind it. For one, because of the troubles that brought and just the people I was kind of around at the time, it pushed me out of that area, brought me here, where I found, you know, better people that were doing something with their life. So that was a huge driving force behind it. And then, you know, just obviously the people you meet along the way, encouraging you and, you know, kind of molding you and shaping you into these arts.
For sure, yeah, no, absolutely. Tell us about your first MMA fight. Like, how old were you, and yeah, just tell us about that experience.
First MMA fight was probably 2004 or 2005 again, right in that time period.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the dates again to be
Yeah.
positive, but right there, it was exciting actually, because I mean, you do training for a year or two straight of stuff that you've never really done. You know, like I said, I did wrestling when I was younger. Never stuck to it long enough to really do anything with it. And then I did karate, same kind of thing. You know, went into it somewhat far, but not carrying it all the way to where you would take it into other stuff. So basically, that's pretty much that.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the guy that you fought?
Was a kid from Minnesota. Honestly, again, you'd have to look on there and see, but I don't remember his name.
Was that local fight, or did you have to travel a little bit?
It was in a small town called Marshfield, which is in central Wisconsin there too. It was in a hockey rink.
Really?
So that's a lot of the times where they would have stuff like that back in the day.
I feel like that'd be a pretty cool venue though, hockey rink.
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, so it goes hand in hand. I mean, hockey people like to fight. So it's kind of a good spot for it.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So talk about, is there any, you know, and this might be tough too to remember, it's, you know, like you said, it's tough to look at the dates and stuff and remember everything, but are there any fights throughout your whole amateur, pro career, just your entire fight career, any specific fights that like stick out in your mind that just were like, that felt good to get that win, or maybe it was a loss that pushed you, or who maybe is a big name you fought, you know what I mean, like at that time?
Absolutely. There was a couple fights that kind of developed me into being I guess a prospect in this state, where people started taking notice, or you know, maybe putting me up a little higher on the echelon of people. One of the fights was fighting another guy from Minnesota, which seemed to happen a lot. He was just kind of a cocky guy, and he was kind of cussing at me. He actually knocked me down with an uppercut, and he was over the top of me, kind of swearing at me like, "Come on, get up," you know, goading me on. And basically, I was able to get up, and ended up catching him with a combination, and then I ended up taking his back and submitting him pretty a violent submission, I guess you'd say, because of the way I did it. But
just kind of,
you know, and that made people take notice of me. And then shortly thereafter, I would say this is probably 2006. I think I should remember this one because it was on my birthday. I ended up fighting somebody from Adrian Serrano's camp.
Okay, yeah.
And I ended up getting like I think it was like a 16-second knockout, something like that, with a Superman punch.
Oh, okay, that was the one, yeah.
Right, and that kind of, right from that point on, people started taking more notice. They're like, this guy can fight.
Yeah, I bet.
We want to see him fight again. and then the opportunities were starting to come from there.
Yeah, yeah. Was that a pro fight that you had that knockout?
That was
Yep.
a pro fight.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. How many fights have you had total? What was your AMI career and then pro career?
Amateur fights, basically, because they weren't always documented. I had about 6 or 7 fights. A lot of those fights at that time were taking place in bars and things like that, so that's why they weren't necessarily documented. Maybe they weren't supposed to be having them there.
Yeah.
Things like that. Did a lot of submission grappling things.
Like in the cage too, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
cage grappling stuff during that period of time. But right now my record, I think after Morgan helping me get a little bit of it clarified, I think it's now 4-1, I believe.
As an AMI?
As a professional
Okay.
on there, and as an amateur, I think there was 2 or 3 that were actually recorded. So
Okay.
not a lot of fights necessarily, but
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you remember your actual amateur records? It's been so long.
like I said, I think on there it's 3-0. I think
3-0,
it's on
okay.
there. Yep.
What was it actually? If all those unsanctioned
Probably
bouts?
more like 7 or 8-0. Yeah.
That's sick. That's awesome. And then what was your record as a pro? It says 4-0 on there.
4-1 on there now.
4-1.
Is what's on there now.
Okay, is that what it actually was?
No, it was 5-1
5-1.
as a
Yeah,
professional paid
that's what I thought.
fighter.
Yep, yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, that's over, well over a dozen fights, Tell us about kind of the era you started MMA in, the golden era, some would say the unsanctioned days of, MMA in Wisconsin. What was that like kind of coming up in it now that you're seeing the, other side of it, like the modern era, some would say?
It was pretty wild because there was quite a few people doing fights. So I mean, there was a handful or more of promoters in the state here and in the surrounding states. So there was always an opportunity to fight. So if somebody that wanted to fight could really get a lot of fights racked up quick if they wanted to. Because I mean, every other weekend there was fights, or every weekend a lot of times there was fights within a couple hour radius of here.
Yeah.
Whether it be down south by Duke and them, back in the day, gladiators fighting. For you people that have been around long enough to remember that, which later became a North American Fighting Championships, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
Madtown Throwdown, Conquer the Cage, King of the Cage.
Yep, that's right.
A lot of smaller ones that I can't even remember the names of necessarily.
Like the Madtown Throwdown one, yeah.
But it was a really good time. Not only in just so many fights and really being able to see all that go on, but also just the friendships that you made, and then that carried into going to a lot of places and training and seeing and meeting a lot of cool people and really learning a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can imagine, yeah. I mean, it's like you always hear the stories now that we're in, like I said, the so-called modern era is just like having fights at bars where it'd be like, hey, do you want to fight? Do you want to fight? I mean, does that kind of stuff actually happen in Wisconsin too? Like,
oh yeah, that happened even before that. A lot of what would happen is, I mean, if somebody wanted to fight each other, they didn't have a place to do it. You'd go out to a field in the country, you know what I mean? And your friends would come, and your friends would come, and then other people would come because they would hear about it. Or you'd go to a park, and that's how you would handle your problems with people.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I grew up. I mean, it wasn't, people getting shot necessarily, but there was, if you had a problem with somebody, hey, meet me here, and we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
So.
And I think a lot, including myself, still wish it that way. Be a lot easier.
Yeah,
so,
you can't do that nowadays necessarily.
No, not necessarily. So this is a cool one that I think people would love to hear is, and this would be tough for you to remember because you train with so many people and met so many people, but tell us about some of the big names that pop up into your head that you've had the opportunity to not only train with, but maybe just meet, learn from, hang out with. I know a couple like Randy Couture, you sparred with Anthony Johnson way back in the day, like cool things that people would never know about you that I'm like, even me to this day, I'm still like, that is so cool.
Yeah, for me, I was really lucky to meet some really active people in martial arts training, and some of them wanted to be fighters, obviously. But I was really lucky to meet up with some great people that traveled a lot, and that's kind of what sparked meeting those people. And then also being, kind of a pioneer around here, I guess, with some other select few people. Just the right people being around here also added to that. So For instance, Chad and Chad Holton, basically owned Warpath Fight Gear, and they would come here and train with us at our gym at the time, and basically they had a small fight gear company. So they were going around the country and all over the place, and spreading that fight gear, giving stuff to the fighters, trying to get promote them and things like that. And they would go and do a lot of training also with those guys and do privates and things like that. So we all actually took a trip out, I think in 2004, to California, which was kind of the mecca at the time.
Yeah.
This is even before Vegas was a big hot spot for mixed martial arts training or martial arts training in general. And we basically went to some of the best schools out there, the Gracie Academy out there, training at Hickson's School, Boss Rutan School, which at that time was Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu there. Waleed Ismail, I think, was running that school with Boss Rutan there, teaching the striking.
Yeah, Waleed Ismail, man, that's a name. He's still in MMA.
Yep.
I think he might be working with Paulo Costa.
Sure. Yep.
I think now. So it's
Absolutely.
Just like one name I can
doing
think of.
translation, I know that too.
Yeah.
And obviously training and coaching.
That guy's an OG. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And then right around the corner from Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu was City Boxing. And that's basically where Eddie Bravo had his original school.
That's sweet.
So,
wow, that's crazy. Man, yeah, I just like it, especially as a nerd like myself, and you are too. Like, I keep like just dreaming of that. Like that, man, that would be so cool to look back now and see all those big names, like what they've done. What was it? Tell us about the story if you can about training with Anthony Johnson.
So we were actually there to train with the shootbox team had just moved to America. They just started their first branch here.
Okay.
George Oliveira was there as one of the head coaches. They had a lot of black belts there. I mean, black belts were a dime a dozen actually there. They brought so many over from Brazil and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
it was an interesting thing. But we went there to train with George and do some privates with George. Anthony happened to be there. This is before Anthony Johnson, obviously. Right? I mean, he's still him, and he was a presence back then. So obviously it's a wonder he got where he did. But he was there sparring, and those two were doing some sparring and stuff. They were kind of going at each other. You could just tell the alpha male thing was going on back and forth, because you're talking about a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and George Oliveira, heavyweight Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and George Oliveira, and then Anthony Johnson, future heavyweight champion. Yeah. In organizations. So basically it came time to do some sparring, and I was there sparring. I was sparring with my friend Chad. He was kind of beating me up a little bit, and then it was my turn to go with Anthony, and basically he didn't take it easy on me. So I got worked in real good. I mean, the guy he's just a specimen. He's an athlete. He wasn't even probably as big as he is now, obviously, because he was a young kid back then, but he just had lightning fast hands. I remember him hitting me with the jab, and all I saw was like the flash of it. I didn't see the hand or the glove hit me, just a flash. Yeah. And then he ended up putting me down with a body shot, and I had quite of a temper back then. Like, I wasn't like you know what I mean? Like, even if you were beating me up, I wasn't ready to lay down, so I got kind of pissed, and the round ended, and I was coming back at him kind of heated. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I ended up kicking like the door open and storming out in the middle of like South Central LA, like, there's gangbangers out there, and I'm like cussing, and it wasn't necessarily the smartest move I've ever done in my life, but so that was that experience. And
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember you telling me that long ago, and I think your exact words, correct me if I'm wrong, was like the hardest jab you ever felt to this day.
Absolutely, hardest, fastest jab.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, that just since Anthony Johnson's he's not currently fighting right now, he's actually getting ready to come back as a heavyweight. But Anthony Rumble Johnson fought for the UFC light heavyweight title twice. Yep. Was supposed to fight John Jones. John Jones had to pull out. And then he fought DC twice for the belt. Yep. But Anthony Johnson, man, I think to this day, in my opinion, is one of the hardest hitters in the UFC ever. So yeah, just a top level guy coming back to actually fight. So to give you guys a little bit of a history there. I know too that you've got an opportunity, I don't know if you can talk about it or not, because obviously some details you obviously keep private and stuff, but training and hanging out with Randy Couture a little bit too, right? And how'd you get to meet Randy?
So that goes back to just being able to be in the right place at the right time with people.
Yeah.
So Ken Popolka was eventually one of my wrestling coaches, specifically wrestling for fighting, you know, is what he specialized in. Was actually very good friends with Randy Couture. And basically was able to bring him here, you know, to this area to do some stuff for us, some training and things like that. And then later on, after Randy was really well established and had his gym Extreme Couture, I was able to go out there and train, have a lot of good experiences, just like the last one we talked about, basically, with a lot of top level guys. So basically that whole thing developed through Ken. You know, God rest his soul, he's gone now, but he was a really a good guy, really cared about his students, and just helped a lot of people get really good at wrestling around here.
Yeah.
You know, he was a coach at Menasha for a while, did extracurricular stuff for the wrestling community, and then donated his time over here, you know, when I first started training with him. So,
yeah. Well, no, I think, didn't you bring him into, when you were working out the gym down the street, I think I met him one time there.
Yep.
Shorter guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stubby. That's his nickname. So that's the nickname that he got in the Army. So for you guys that don't know that much about Randy, Randy and Stubby both were in the Army. They were on the all Army wrestling team, which led both of them to get really close to the Olympics. So both of them were basically Olympic alternates.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, Randy was trying to get in the Olympics, came up short a couple times. But so very high caliber Greco-Roman wrestlers.
Yeah.
One of the cool pictures, and I hope I could get a copy of it sometime from Die or something, is you know, Stubby throwing a guy like way in the air, and he's getting ready to go basically head over heels, and
really,
you know, so
that's cool.
Real high level. If you grab onto a guy like that, or like if say when Randy came here to do a seminar, if he touched you, grabbed you, you just felt off balance. They just knew how to grab you, where to hold you, you know, where you weren't getting away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So, one, it's cool too to think about. Stubby was Tyler Bordeaux's wrestling coach, right?
Yep.
That was our
original wrestling coach.
Yep. Tyler was our first wrestling coach at the gym back at the old small little spot. Tyler's a great guy, and he had great wrestling too for just not even being in college. I mean, just was a high school wrestler.
I think anytime you spend even a little bit of time with somebody at that high of a level, if you're taking it seriously and you're soaking up what he's giving you, then basically you're gonna be better for it.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. What's Randy like in person? Is he cool?
Oh, such a nice guy. He's very personal. He'll sit right down next to you, have a drink with you, buy you a drink, talk with you. You know, I've had a lot of cool experiences over the years. You know, getting to know him a little better. Hanging out with Ken there before he passed in Vegas. You know, kind of living the life that he's got, a rock star. You know, there basically. You know, they go in, they got private little bars they go in, hang out, and do cool stuff. I was actually just telling her this story. We were down there Mother's Day, and they had like a little Mother's Day thing at this cool little bar that they hung out with, and they had some musician from The Voice, couldn't tell you his name. Another musician from like some famous rock band, and Randy, they're all on stage jamming out, doing Mother's Day songs, and playing. Randy plays the harmonica, so it's just cool experiences that you know, got to have over this period of years here.
Oh, for sure. And just another one too, if you guys don't know who Randy Couture is, I don't know what to tell you. UFC Hall of Famer. Was he, I think he was the first guy to win a belt in 2 weight classes, right?
Multiple time champion at light heavyweight and heavyweight.
Yeah. And he was, I think he was the first to hold 2 different titles, or I'm sorry, a title in 2 different weight classes in the UFC. So cool stat about Randy Couture, all-time legend, great. Still involved in the sport to this day too, which is awesome.
Great gym. There in Vegas, Couture for sure.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to go there. I can imagine too. You touched on it. Was you know, you training at Extreme Couture back in those days. I could only imagine the kind of guys that were in the room with you that are now like household names in MMA. I'm sure. You know,
his son was there, obviously, Ryan.
Oh, yeah. He's fighting Bellator.
There's just a lot of people, man. There's so many people in there. Evan Dunham was there at the time. Martin Campman. They were just kind of chilling, not training the days necessarily that I was there. They were getting, you know, specific work, you know, stuff like that. But
that's so cool.
Lots of people. Lots of people for
I know you've told me many stories about training with Robert Drysdale.
Yep.
Out in Vegas.
Yep. Yeah.
You know.
That came, specifically from Chad, who I talked about having Warpath fight gear back in the day. He now lives in Vegas out there, and he trains with Robert.
Yeah.
And
is Chad a black belt now?
Yep. Yeah, he earned his black belt through Robert, so.
Awesome.
That was kind of his dream to go out there and do something bigger than necessarily around here. That's what he chose to do. Robert, another great jiu-jitsu guy, kind of a pioneer of jiu-jitsu in a way. So
for sure, that might be one that people definitely might not know unless you're a nerd in jiu-jitsu. But fought in UFC. He was an 80cc champion. Submitted Marcelo Garcia. Yeah. Really high level jiu-jitsu guy out in Vegas. Robert Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's called Zenith Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yeah, I think they created like an association kind of.
Okay, yeah.
For people, yep.
Yeah, so Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu, yeah.
Yep, similar to what Daniel's doing now here,
Yep. Awesome, man. So I think these are good ones too that people would really be able to take a lot from is, what has training in martial arts taught you so far in life, would you say?
Well, man, it's kind of been an equalizer, like it just nullifies a lot of things in you. So if you say, you're coming into martial arts and you're more of an angry person, it's going to calm you down. It's going to teach you discipline and respect. So all of those things it's taught me basically. It's definitely made me a better human being. Made me to make, stressful decisions, make them easier, and just how to handle situations so much better. I don't think I've been in a street fight since I started taking martial arts seriously. You know what I mean? So it's like, as opposed to where maybe before that I was always getting in fights, always. So it's definitely made me a better person that way.
Oh, for sure.
Self-control, respect, honor, just how to be calm under pressure, I think.
Yeah, no, and you hear that so often, right? Like, training and like a lot of like the most like common misconception. I think it's getting better as days, this becomes more of a normal thing to people, but people always say, well, you fight or you train MMA, you must be an angry person. It's like, it's actually the opposite. Right. Like you said, I mean, when you train and you have that confidence and you can let out that energy, right? Like a lot of people need, this is an awesome outlet. Yeah. You don't feel the need to go and like be confrontational.
Usually, but if you're really taking training seriously and training hard so that you're actually learning the martial art properly, I mean, you're not going to have the energy to want to do much anything after a good couple hour training session, let alone, go out there and start a fight with somebody or engage in somebody starting a fight with you. You just, your words, you learn how to use your words a lot better too. To de-escalate things like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is sort of the same question, more so about the sport of MMA itself, but what has the sport of MMA taught you so far in life, if it's different necessarily from the previous question?
I think the sport aspect of it has taught me, win or lose, you learn, you know what I mean? Because anytime you're an athlete, winning is important to, being an athlete, that's your soul, right? You want to win, you want to produce a good result at the end of whatever you've trained for, right? Because that's a sport, you're training for something specific, right? If you want to be good at golf, you train at golf. If you want to be good at fighting, well, then you train to fight. If you're going to train to fight, then you're training probably a lot of things, right? Wrestling, grappling, stand up, all of that stuff. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And so obviously this is a good one too. Obviously you've trained with, many of the teams, gyms that exist in the area. Essentially just being a pioneer, like as you said earlier, as you for sure are. You've essentially trained with all of the starting gyms in this area, and I would imagine probably most of Wisconsin to some extent. So how does being a part of, our gym here, Roufusport Appleton, Resurgence, Wanderlei Jiu-Jitsu, how would you say that differs from your other experiences training with, essentially pretty much all the gyms for sure in this area?
I think, for me, looking back over the years, there's been times of when things were good here at certain gyms. I don't think any gym here now is doing what we are doing here. So I think the biggest thing is that, we're just creating this culture and this team-oriented group of people here that are, whatever your goal is, again, if you're just trying to get fit, you know, because you don't like doing it the traditional way, or if you want to learn martial arts for self-defense, or if you go right of that and you want to go extreme and you want to be a fighter, there's no place here that you're going to get that culture that you need to produce those results to be able to get and reach those goals. So I think that's what we're doing different right now. So what we've created here, what Andrew has stepped up and helped really push the bar to be over what it's ever been. That now is what we have here. So I mean, that's the big difference. I don't think you're gonna find that anywhere else you go. You might find some decent grappling, things like that, some people that know what they're talking about, definitely, because some of those people develop me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Me as well, yeah.
But you're not gonna find the culture that you're gonna find here at Resurgence Roufusport Appleton, for sure. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, no, and it's awesome to hear you say that. I feel the exact same way, obviously, of course. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely not about one person here. It's about all the coaches and all the students bringing everything together, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
You guys matter. You make this what it is.
Oh, exactly. And so I think last one here, and I think a lot of the aspiring fighters will take something from this, is what advice would you give someone who's aspiring to become a fighter, or that's a goal they have one day?
Yeah, that's a huge thing, because I don't know, looking back of all the injuries and things that have happened to me over the years, if I would recommend it to everybody. But I think that if your head's on straight and it's something you really want to do, just make sure you have all the boxes checked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That every box that you need checked, and when I say boxes, I'm saying, is your head in the right place? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Do you really want it? Or is it more of an image thing for you, where you want to be a fighter so bad because that's what's cool and that's what they're showing you on TV? So make sure all your boxes are checked, and then obviously you need to be at the right gym, for you to get that development, to get there where you want to be, and never short yourself in your training, because for me, pushing 20 years now, 18 years or whatever, since I really stepped on the mat and took it seriously, that's something I never did. I always pushed hard. I mean, leave the mat bloody a lot of times, more than not. You know what I mean? And that's grappling and punching and everything considered, all those things considered, just really put yourself into it, immerse yourself in it, because that's the way you actually get good and truly understand the positions that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will teach you, or the high level striking like Roufusport striking will teach you. You really got to immerse yourself and open yourself up, have an open mind, kind of like Bruce Lee used to talk about, I mean, you have an open mind. There is no one mind, it's many minds. You're just taking it all in. Everybody's take what the good is, and you can leave the bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. Let's end on that awesome note. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your time today, Coach. Hope you guys enjoy. I know there's even some things that I learned today that I'm like, oh wow, that's a really cool story there. You guys don't ever be afraid to come up to Coach Chuck when you see him at the gym and try to soak up the knowledge that he brings. I mean, how many years have you been doing this now?
So yeah, about 18, probably, roughly 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, almost 2 decades, full of just experiences, accomplishments, skill. I mean, the list goes on and on. To this day, I've never tapped Chuck out, so still reaching for that. That's a personal goal of mine. But if you guys have rolled with Coach Chuck, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The man is just an animal on the ground, and a scary, scary man to be in front of when you're striking too. So thank you so much, brother. Love you, man. This guy has quickly become my one of my closest friends, and for those that you don't know, that Chuck is my first ever MMA coach. So it's truly like an honor every day that I wake up. I'm like, I get to practice, MMA with the same guy that I started with, part of our team now. It's our team together, and just pushing boundaries and pushing the limits every few months here in the area. So
yeah, the honor is definitely with you guys. Without you guys, I couldn't purvey any of this stuff. So a long time ago, I think a good friend of mine, Herbert whispered Goodman, I was ready to stop and be done. I was in between here and there, and I was ready to stop and be done. And he basically said, Chuck, you got so much to offer people. So that really helped me push forward and link back up with you guys and get to where we are. So for all you guys out there, count. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, we'll be back on the mat soon, guys. Hopefully sooner than later. So hope you guys enjoy. Leave us a comment. yeah, just let us know what you guys think. So, all right, guys, we're peacing out. Have a good weekend.